5-year history. It's just absolutely amazing. And I know many of you, maybe I'm meeting for the first time, so I'll just briefly introduce myself. I was born and raised in a country all the way out on the other side of the world called South Korea. And when I was 14, my family moved to the greatest country in the world, which is, yes. And you know, we came out here looking for opportunities, and my parents opened up small dry cleaning, small business, and you know, I went to school. I started working right away when I was 15 because our family was short on finances, and did the best I can. You know, went through school system. Right when I was starting college, I was working at Starbucks 4 a.m. in the morning until 12 o'clock, to classes in the afternoon, and nighttime working at restaurants. Just do the best I can to make enough money to pay for education and just to survive, right? You know, and it was kind of crazy because I knew my parents couldn't work any more hours. I knew they couldn't work harder. I knew I couldn't work harder. But every month I felt like we had the things that we needed it, but we never had the things that we truly wanted it. And you know, I felt like my parents absolutely love each other, and they're so nice to each other for the first 20 days of the month. But at the end of the month, they were having some very rough, sensitive conversations. How many of you guys know what I'm talking about? And you know, I thought to myself, they love each other so much. Why do they have to be in a position like this month after month, year after year? And I said, there has to be a better way. And a friend of mine invited me to an opportunity to go to my first PBR, where there was only 8 people there, but the opportunity that was shared with me and the information that was shared with me that night completely changed the direction of my life. And I think everybody in the room could agree that maybe you can't change your life overnight, but it is definitely possible to change someone's direction of their life in a split second. And because that information that every single one of us are exposed to now, which is the ACN opportunity, have absolutely changed my life for the last 14 years. Because of ACN, I've been able to travel the world, make friends all over the world, and especially my first 7 years living in America as an IBO and working and becoming a senior vice president at the age of 24. And when ACN was expanding out into Asia, for the last 7 years, I've been spending a lot of time in Korea and Japan. And how many of you have been to Korea or Japan? Anybody? Oh, a lot of you. That's great. Well, you know, we got a lot of opportunities there in the future. Send us people there. We'd love to help you build a team out there as well. And we even have some friends that are here from Japan. Can we give them a big hand? They flew all the way in from Japan. Great seeing you guys. Konnichiwa. And a lot of great things are happening in Asia. Just 2 weeks ago, we had a great convention, Asia convention, kicking off 2018 strong. And we had thousands of people there. Mr. Greg Provenzano was there. And, you know, people's lives were changed. And I'll tell you a little more about that in a minute. But, you know, when I first got started, I just got to tell you, I didn't have success right away. You know, and I was watching other people have success faster than me. And I used to wonder, well, what are they doing that I'm not doing? Matter of fact, my first day, I had a friend join the opportunity with me. And it took me several months before I found my second person because I just wasn't confident enough. Because here's what happened. I told my first friend about the opportunity. She came to the PBR and she was very positive. She joined. And that night, her mom talked her out of it, so the next day she canceled. So I guess it mentally affected me that it's possible that I could talk to someone and they could cancel the day after. So it took me another 9 months to find my second person in the business. And for the 9 months, going to PBRs and going to weekly trainings and going to conventions, I thought to myself, how come everybody else is having so much success when I can't even go out there and find one more person to get in my business to become an ETT? And you know, when I first heard this training about the 4 phases of our business that people have to understand, and the one phase that you have to master, because that's what truly creates all the results. You know, I got into the basics of what we do, and I started doing what's called phase 1, and it just changed the game for me. And went from 9 months of not being able to have a team to literally 5 to 6 weeks later, we were having over 300 people coming together for a weekly training. Let me ask you guys a question. How many of you would like to go from not having any results at all and in short few weeks of time having 300 or maybe whatever bigger number, 300 or 100 or 500 amount of people coming to your weekly training in your local market? How many of you would like to have that happen to your business as well? Well, I was very hungry, just like Mr. James Atlam and the leaders were talking about. I was hungry, I was motivated, I was staying plugged in, but this is what I didn't understand for the first 9 months. So today, all I'm going to do for the next 20 minutes or so is share with you a couple of those ideas and a couple of those trainings that was taught to me that has helped me to go from no results at all for 9 months to, in few weeks of time, building a team of a few hundred people, and now being able to duplicate that in multiple cities and multiple countries around the world, okay? So first thing they explained to me is there are 4 phases in ACN that people could go through if they don't mentally focus on staying in phase 1. And basically, here's what he said. Phase 1 is where all the momentum gets created. And phase 2 is when people try to manage the momentum they created. And phase 3 is when they try to oversee the people that are trying to manage the momentum that's being created. And phase 4 is when they're trying to oversee the overseers, and because of it, what happens is that they end up being phased out because now there's nothing happening in the team. So let me explain it like this. Phase 1 is what creates momentum. Phase 1 basically means you're building your team, you're building your business, you're going out there and having exposures like we've heard today, maybe through a 3-way call, through PBRs, and doing exposures of ACN opportunity and getting new customers is what phase 1 activities are. And anytime we're having phase 1 activities, obviously it's creating momentum. But if we don't be careful, here's what my mentor made me realize is if we don't be careful, as soon as you have something going, of 5 and 10 and 20 and 50, 100 business partners coming in, if we don't be careful, now that we have 10, 20, 50, 100 people in the team or customers, we want to go into phase 2 where we want to start managing people that are trying to create momentum. So let me just explain it like this. When I first understood phase 1 and started doing momentum creating activities, I was doing PBRs every single day. I was inviting people to make sure we have people at the PBR learning about the opportunity, being exposed to the opportunity so we have the opportunity to soar, to find the right business partners and customers. I was doing those activities every day, but once I started having few people in the team, instead of me inviting to make sure we have guests at the PBR, I started calling people. How many people do you have coming to your PBR? How many people do you have coming to your PBR? So I didn't even realize that I was getting into the management mode, but I realized that I started to manage, and it's okay to know what your other business partners are doing as long as I keep doing my phase 1 with it. But if I'm not doing it myself, how many of you ever heard of a saying, people do what you do, not what you say? So what happens is, because I started asking them and they realized I'm not doing it, I'm just asking them and I'm trying to manage them for them to do it, what happens is it automatically pushes you to phase 3, which is now I'm trying to manage managers. I'm just trying to oversee. So I call Mike and say, hey, Mike, how many people are coming to your PBR? How many PBRs are happening in your team this week? He said, well, let me get back to you. Why? He doesn't know. Why? Because he's not setting it up himself either. So he has to call somebody else and say, hey, Mark, how many do you have going on? Sonny, how many do you have going on? Brandon, how many do you have going on? Armand, how many do you have going on? So he has to call other people and find out, because now he's trying to do what I do, which is to manage and oversee other people's creating momentum activities. But sooner or later, everybody starts copying what the leader is doing, and that automatically pushes people into phase 4, where now they're out of ACN and they're phased out because there's no new activities happening to create any momentum. And guess what everybody's doing? Now everybody's playing the blame game. And I was in that stage as well many years ago. And I went up to my mentor one day and said, hey, man, I got to tell you, mentor. I said, I think everybody in my team is just lazy. How many of you ever had a conversation or thought like that before? right? I'm like, I told my mentor, I said, I don't understand, sir. Everybody is so lazy. I don't get it. And I said, everybody is so stupid. I feel like we have conversation and they don't get it. They're stupid and they're lazy. And you know what my mentor said? He said, I agree with you. He said, wow, thank you for agreeing with me. I was feeling better for a second. And next thing he said is, but just understand, your team is mirror of you. And they're only going to do what you do, and they're never going to do what you say or what you talk about. He says, so, Danny, do you want your team to work harder? I said, yes, sir. He said, that's very easy to do. You just got to work harder, because as soon as you do, they're going to copy you and they're going to work harder. Do you want your people to pay attention more and be more coachable and learn the business better? I said, yes, sir. He said, all you have to do is to go out there and make sure that you're being coachable, you're learning the system, and you're going out there and improving yourself. In time, people are going to do what you do, and they're going to do the same. And what he made me realize is, he said, if you could stay in phase one, he said, you will always have momentum on your side. And he said, you always want momentum on your side because, he said, here is one of the first rules in leadership. He said, momentum is leader's best friend. He said, when you have momentum on your side, it makes you look better than you really are. He said, but when momentum isn't on your side, it makes you worse than you really are. And I thought to myself, well, I want to look better than I really am. How many of you want to look better than how you actually are, by show of hands? You know, how many of you ever taken a selfie before? How many of you had to take like 10 of them to find the right angle? How many of you know what I'm talking about? And right angle isn't enough nowadays. The filter. How many of you know what I'm talking? We all want to look better than we really are. And my mentor said, Danny, all you need is momentum. Momentum is like the perfect angle and a filter for you as a leader, because it will just make you look better than you are. He said, and if you want momentum, you just got to make sure you stay in phase one. You know, and once you understand, it's like this. I was just talking to some of the leaders. People said, Danny, how do you have that much momentum? How do you have that much success happen in Asia? You know, I'll just show you some pictures of the convention we just had in Asia. This was just 2 weekends ago. First time we did a convention, not in the capital of Korea where we usually do a convention in Seoul. This was in Busan, Korea, which was about 4 or 5 hours away. And we have thousands of people there. And from Japan, we had over 2,000 IBOs that flew in from Japan to be at this event. And Japan's only been open for 1 year. And yes, company's been open in Japan for a year, but I'll tell you right now, we launched in the main city, Tokyo, electricity in December of 2016. So little over a year, but all the other markets, we started launching in April and May and June. So really, some of the cities, majority of the cities in Japan, only been open for about 7 or 8 months of time. But we had 2,000 people fly in from Japan to be at this event. And I could tell you this event was so powerful. I could tell you that Mr. Greg Provenzano's message, the Senior Vice President, we have now 12 Circle of Champions members from Asia, 9 from Korea, 3 from Japan. And I could tell you right now that all these leaders have done an incredible job. And Mr. Greg Provenzano's message of where ACN is today, where our company started from 25 years ago, and I can't wait for you to hear his message tomorrow morning when he's opening the event tomorrow. I'm just telling you, every person in that room had a complete paradigm shift. Our vision has stretched in a way that's never happened before, and I'm telling you, all the behaviors and the activities for the last 2 weeks since the event have completely changed. I could tell you right now, in Korea, since the convention, daily, new IBOs joining the opportunity have increased almost 30% daily compared to prior to the convention. And in Japan right now, customer acquisition has increased almost 50% compared to where we were 2 weeks ago before the convention. And I'm not saying that to talk about Korea and Japan. I'm not saying that to talk about Asia. I'm saying that to only tell you what can happen to your business. Let me ask you a question. How many of you want your business in the next 2 weeks to grow 30% and 50% in customer acquisition and recruiting like never before? I'm telling you, it could happen to every single one of you. This is people lining up just to get into the convention. Let me ask you one more time. How many of you want to have massive momentum in your team, in your city, in your state, where this is the size of your organization in next 2 years of time, next 3 years of time, next 5 years of time? And I'm here to tell you, if it could happen for them, it could happen for you. If it could happen for me, it could happen for you. 14 years ago, I was working at Starbucks. I was working at Starbucks 14 years ago. I only lived in America for 4.5 years before getting involved in ACN. I didn't even speak English when I was joining ACN. I was talking to Mr. Greg Provenzano in Korea a couple of weeks ago, and he said, man, Danny, I remember when I was saying like 10 words to you and you didn't understand what I was talking about. I didn't have to just learn phase one. I had to learn English. I had to learn what phase meant before I learned phase one. Maybe that's what helped me to stay in phase one, because understanding phase 1, 2, 3, 4 was too much. I just learned phase one and stayed with phase one. But here's what I'm here to tell you. If I could do it, living in America for 4.5 years, not knowing anyone, not speaking the language, didn't know people, didn't have any money. When I told a person, when they introduced me to the opportunity, I got excited, but I told them I don't know if I could do it. And here's what he said. He said, Danny, of course you could do it. I said, I only lived in America for 4.5 years. I don't even speak the language. He said, no problem. You don't have to speak the language. Bring them. We speak English fine. He said, you don't have to train them. Just bring them. We'll train them for you. I said, great. He said, but I don't know anybody. He said, no problem. Just meet people. Okay. I said, I don't have any money. He said, if you don't have any money, we've been looking for you for 6 months. He said, you'd be the greatest success story in this company if you don't have any money. Every excuse I was trying to give him, he said, that's the reason why you can make it here. I said, I grew up poor. I've never even had more than $2,000 in my bank account ever. He said, that's great. You're going to have a better story than anybody else. And I used to think negative, but he trained me and helped me to think positive. I used to tell him that, hey, I don't know if I could do it. He said, of course you could do it. He gave me the encouragement, not overnight. I told you, 9.5 months, I couldn't recruit a single person. But being consistent with weekly training, being consistent with convention, and learning through repetition. Not hearing it one time and saying, I got it. No, hearing it over and over and over again. And do it, and if it's not working out, do it again. If you're not getting the results you want, do it again. Running and falling, but getting back up and running again. My mentor said, Danny, it doesn't matter how many times you fall. Only thing that matters is how many times you get up. As long as you keep getting up and keep running, there is no way you're not going to make it here. It didn't happen for me overnight, but it's happening everywhere right now. Why? Because I stay the course. And I understood phase one, and I decided to completely neglect phase 2 and 3 and 4 once I understood that our business is all about phase 1 and leading by example. Now, once the momentum is created, you have to sustain it and advance it. And I want to just spend a few minutes talking about that. Once the momentum is created in your market by doing a lot of PBRs and a lot of exposures to brand new people to ACN, opportunities and services, how many of you want to really master how to turn that 5 and 10 and 50 and 100 into 500 to 1,000 to 5,000 to 10,000? Here's how you do it. And you have to understand the 3 stages of momentum. Because I see some people I work with in America or Korea or Japan, and they mastered stage 1. They go out there and work hard and they create momentum. But it's like they create momentum, but they don't sustain it and they don't advance it. And because of it, 90 days later, next year, they have to recreate it from the beginning again. Here's what my mentor said. If you could truly understand these 3 stages and master it and make sure you don't end after stage 1, you don't end after stage 2, but you truly take every momentum all the way through three stages, you could go out there and build an organization bigger than anything you've ever seen. And when Mr. Greg Provenzano said at a convention, one of the conventions I went 10 years ago, when Mr. Greg Provenzano said this at the convention, I believed him and I said, you know what, that's exactly what's going to happen. Here's what he said. That's when I only had a few hundred people with me at a convention. Here's what he said. He said, one day, some of you in this room will have an organization size bigger than everybody in this room right now. He said, one day, some of you in this room could have an organization with customers that's more than how many customers ACN has right now worldwide. And when he said that, I thought to myself, if one day, if that's going to happen to somebody, I looked around, might as be me. If one day, if it's going to happen to somebody, might as be me. Why? My mentor said, I'll be the best success story because I was broke and I didn't speak English. I was uneducated, didn't know anybody. I said, I got to be that guy. Let me ask you guys a question. If you became a senior vice president, if you build an organization of 10,000 people coming to your training event, how many of you could honestly say your success story will be probably one of the best success stories in the industry, where you know your success story will inspire thousands, if not millions of people in the world? Anybody like that out there? How many of you have some untold stories inside of you that you can't wait to tell when you become a senior vice president and you're speaking in front of 10, 20,000 people? Anybody? How many of you have some hungry moments and some stories inside of you that you just haven't told anyone yet because you're just waiting for that moment when you make it, and not just you, but you have helped other people to make? How many of you have those stories that you cannot wait to tell one day? By show of hands, let me see you. If that's you, master this. Understand 3 stages. So every momentum you create, you can sustain it and advance it. How do you do it? Number 1 is creating momentum. We already talked about it. A lot of PBRs, a lot of exposures. Being willing to do anytime, anywhere, whatever it takes to meet new prospects, to get new IBOs, new customers. That's what you do. That's how you create momentum. That's phase 1. But sustaining it is the key. Who cares if you create it a lot if you don't sustain it and it's gone? How many of you want to make sure if you're putting the effort to create something that you don't lose it and you maintain it? How many of you? Right? So how do you do that? Stage 2 is important. The key is to enroll them into the system. Enroll them into the system. Tell the person sitting next to you, because I know you got it. I could tell that you got it. But I could tell the person sitting next to you didn't get it. So grab the person next to you if you can and tell them, enroll them into the system. Enroll them into the system, because I know you got it. They got to get it too. Enroll them into the system. What is a system? Our weekly training, our leadership training, regional trainings, conventions like this. Let me give you an example.
Do a lot of PBRs, sign up 5 IBOs, 10, 20, 30, 50, 100. You get all these IBOs in your team, and you got all these customers enrolling in. But if the system, you're not enrolling them into the system, you sign them up, you got customers, but you're not enrolling them into the weekly trainings, you're not enrolling them into the leadership trainings or conventions like this, here's what happens. Everybody falls right out. You did the work to create momentum anyways. You already did the work to get new IBOs and business partners and customers anyways. But if you could enroll them into the weekly trainings in your local marketplaces, and if you don't have one, find it online or attach to someone that has it, maybe via a video call or whatever it may be. And as soon as you could get a few people together in your city, make sure you start a weekly training. The materials are already available in the back office. You make sure that they enroll into the ACN system. Then now, everybody that's getting involved, if they're the right people, you could capture them so you could sustain that momentum you created, you worked hard for, so you could take them to the next level and go to stage 3, which is advancing momentum. So how do you advance momentum? Once you create it by doing phase 1, a lot of PBRs. Stage 2, you sustain it by enrolling everybody into weekly training. Let me just say one more thing about that. Mr. Tony Kupich came out to Japan 4 months ago. And just a few days I got to spend with him doing some tours and doing some events. Mr. Tony Kupich made me realize how powerful and how important stage 2 was. And he said, Danny, you guys got all this momentum being created, but you're losing too many. You're losing too many because you're not enrolling them, you're not enrolling everybody into weekly training. I said, how do you know? You look at the size of your weekly training, it will tell you if you're sustaining a lot of the momentum you're creating or not. He said, your Saturday training headcount is gonna be the report card of all the activities that you've done throughout the week properly. He says, so you have to make sure your weekly training headcount grows. It starts with maybe 2 or 5 or 10 or 20 people, but you have to make sure it grows. So he had a conversation with me, and we made a commitment in every single city that we're operating in Korea and Japan. We said, you know what, we're gonna go out there and take our weekly training to a whole nother level. And if you haven't seen it, go find ACN Korea, ACN Japan, Facebook, or find my personal Facebook and look at these pictures, because I will tell you right now that right now, since November, our Seoul, which is the main, where Korea headquarters is, our Seoul weekly training headcount has more than doubled in the last 3 months of time. We only have 450 chairs, but we have over 700 to 800 people coming to our weekly training every Saturday, with almost 300 plus people standing or sitting down on the floor. Our Japan training room only holds 250, but this past Saturday, we had over 500 people come to a training room that only have 250 chairs. 40 minutes before the training began, already all the chairs are full, and there's 200 people waiting outside in line. Let me ask you a question. How many of you want that to happen in your team? So people say all the time, well, how do you get 400 people at a weekly training? Here's how you do it. You get one first this Saturday. And you get just one more. You know 400 is just 40 people getting 10? Somebody said, how do you get 40 people to get 10? Just you get 10 first. And just get one more person to get 10 with you after that. And if you just get one more, somebody said, well, I don't know if I could get 10. Just get 5 then. After you get 5, just help one person to get 5. Somebody said, how do you get 10,000 people at a convention? Here's how you do it. You just get about 100 people to get 100 people. Somebody said, I can't get 100. How many could you get? 20. Okay, well then just get 500 people to get 20 people. Somebody said, how do you get 500 people to get 20 people? Here's how you do it. You get 20 people first. So what do you do next? Find another person that could get 20. Get one more person that could get 20. How do you do it? Stage 3 is advancing momentum, is increase the amount of leaders. Here's the reality. I can get 10,000 people in an event by myself. 99% of them, I did not invite them to the training. Would you guys agree with that? But increase the amount of leaders. How do you do that? You become the leader doing the productivity, doing phase one that you want other people to do. You do it first. You get one more person to do it with you. You get another person to do it with you. You get another person to do it with you. And 2 will grow to 4 and 8 and 10 and 20 and 50 and 100. And that's how it grows. We didn't have 10,000 people convention on our day one. No, our first year convention was only 300 people. But who cares? I sat in that room with 300 people. Only thing in my mind is in the next 5 years, we'll have 10,000 people in this room. Why? Because if these 300 people could get 30 people, that's 9,000 people. One leader at a time. You increase the amount of leaders and you raise the average. Here's the reality. Some of you guys heard the leadership this morning when Mr. Greg Provenzano talked about person's capacity. You know, you could do more than you did yesterday. How many ever push-ups you could do right now? How many of you could agree if you did it again tomorrow, if you did it again the day after, if you did it every day for the next 7 days, how many of you could agree that 7 days from now you could do more push-ups than you could do right now? How many of you guys agree with that? Of course. Of course. Every single one of us could go out there and increase our capacity, raise the average of every leader in your team. That's how you go from 0 to 300. That's how you go from 300 to 5,000 and 10,000. And I'm here to tell you, if it can happen for me, it can happen for you. And here's the reality. I know sometimes when we live in America, which in my opinion, the greatest country in the world, there's no country in the world better than America, and I'm proud to be an American citizen. I'm thankful to be an American citizen, and I am so thankful to be part of ACN as an American citizen. Let me tell you why. This opportunity is so good, it's not even funny. I want you to understand how good this is. You know, we could get paid when people pay cell phone bills. You know, we could get paid when people pay their security bills. We could get paid when people pay their internet bill. We could get paid in some of the markets when people pay electricity bill. Some are like, well, I'm not in the energy market. Who cares? You know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody in that city. You could get paid even right now. If you don't live in the energy city or state, you could get paid in energy even starting next month right away. How? Create momentum in your local market. They know somebody, they know somebody. Hey, how many of you guys are from North Carolina or South Carolina? Anybody? Hey, I was talking to an Uber driver a couple days ago, and he was telling me over 20,000 people are moving here every single month to Charlotte. If I were you in Charlotte, I'd be building Charlotte hard. Why? Because if I build a big team in Charlotte, they're all going to be from somewhere else. They'll take you to different cities. And you know what? What's amazing? Now, do you know that your opportunity right now, your ACN opportunity today, do you know you have an opportunity to get paid when somebody in Mexico is paying their cell phone bills? Do you know your opportunity right now, you can get paid when somebody in Australia is paying their electricity bill? Do you know you have an opportunity right now that you could get paid when people in Europe are using our products and services? You know you have an opportunity right now that you could get paid when people in Korea is paying their cell phone bill, when a restaurant in Korea is swiping their credit card, you could get paid on their payment merchant service. You could get paid when people in Japan are paying their electricity bills. That's your opportunity. Name another company in America that could give you that same opportunity in 25 countries with a 25-year track record. Some of you may be saying, well, what does that have anything to do with me? I don't even have a team outside of my neighborhood. If you could catch the vision, if you could catch how big ACN truly is, it doesn't matter if you don't have a single customer in your team yet. All the expansions that's happening, all the products and services that's launching around the world, you could be part of it. You could own a piece of it. Even if you don't know a single person in Korea right now, you know, if you build a big team in your city, in your home state, 5 years from now, you could be one of those people overriding senior vice presidents in Korea. How many of you want to have senior vice presidents in your team in other countries in the future that you can't even pronounce their name properly? One last thing I'll share with you. A lot of times, when I work with people, doesn't matter what country they're in, it's so amazing because people's perception of things just mess them up. Something that's so obvious and so common sense, they still have the wrong perception, and because of it, they mess up. Let me ask you a question. Here's a $100 bill, and here's a penny. Which one's worth more? No, that was not a trick question. $100 is definitely worth more than a penny, and actually 10,000 times more than a penny. Would you guys agree with that? What's bigger, 100 or a penny? Even physically, it's much bigger. Is it possible for someone to not grab a $100 bill because of a penny? No, it wouldn't make sense. Who would pick this over this? It wouldn't make sense. Even though this is so much physically bigger, do you know if you cover your eye with a penny, you won't see the $100 bill right in front of your eye? Something that's worth 10,000 times less. I see people all over the world miss out on big opportunities for something so small. For their daily routine of busyness. For somebody negative, their opinion about what they're doing and what they're not doing. A bad habit, bad condition and circumstance. Don't let a penny have you miss out on your 10,000 times more value opportunity in your life. Throw your pennies away. Let's make it happen. Let's take ACN to become a $10 billion company, become senior vice presidents. Let's make it happen. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow.
Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome back to the stage VP of North American Sales, Mr. Mike K.